Hi, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais in Ontario, Canada, with episode number 19 of the Yakking podcast, where we talk about life, business, and more, and we bring you tips and ideas for a changing world. Today, we have a continuation on the business theme, where we have a guest who has spoken to us before. And before I go any further, I will welcome Kathleen and ask her to introduce our guest. Hello, Kathleen. Say hi to our viewers and listeners.
Hello, Peter. Hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining us. We appreciate you viewing and listening to our podcast. So we do have a guest with us today. His name is Stephen McInnes. And as Peter said, this is a continuation in the series of podcasts and videos that we've had with Stephen. Today's topic is all on value proposition. Welcome, Stephen. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Kathleen. Well, about me, I am essentially I work as a fractional CMO, so I help people with their marketing strategy, their vision. I also teach part-time at the local college where I am focused on client communications. So essentially, I help people position themselves better in the market.
So because our discussion today is all on value proposition, why don't we start with the most obvious question, Stephen? Exactly what is a value proposition?
Well, a value proposition, in essence, is the statement that explains to your customer why they should buy from you, and not someone down the street or someone internationally. It is how your products and services align to them and add value to them. So, much like it says, it's what value does your product, does your service, does your company bring to your client, and what is going to prevent them from going anywhere else.
Okay. And then how do you create one? Take us through the process, Stephen, of how to create one.
Well, as we've been talking about in previous sessions, a value proposition is one part of your marketing strategy.
Right.
A value proposition can't be created in a vacuum. There are things that you need to know. And those things come out of, a few of the other things that we've talked about. The act of doing your SWOT analysis, knowing yourself, knowing your product, knowing your service, knowing your competition. All of those things contribute to a good value proposition, because ultimately you have to know yourself and you have to know your customers to be able to articulate how you help them.
Sure.
So the process really is to assess how you help your customers and how you do that better than anyone else. Definitely in a value proposition, the creation of a value proposition, good is the enemy of great.
Mm-hmm.
It's not one of those things where you can say, well, I'm as good as. I'm sorry, no. You have to be better than if it is going to be part of your value statement. So it's looking at all of the research that you have been doing during that that marketing strategy exercise, of which value proposition is part of it. And it's kind of that continuous process until you get to the end where, you're talking to customers, you're talking to prospects, you're talking to your team, you're asking questions that are uncovering what makes you different. You often will hear the phrase, the secret sauce, right? And that was McDonald's secret to the Big Mac, and that's how it came about. But you are truly trying to uncover what your secret sauce is. What is it that you are going to do that, so let's say that you are providing retail products through some sort of e-commerce. What is it that is so special about your organization, your experience, your customer experience, that even if someone goes online and they see that you're back ordered on a product, or you have a technical hiccup while someone's engaging with your interface, that they come back, right? It's about understanding why you are so well positioned. And I mean, that's people who have been able to develop a value proposition that has that resonating focus, that those are the companies that are going to have the highest level of customer experience, the highest level of alignment, and realistically, their customers, if you ask them, why do you shop at ABC company? They're going to be able to come right out and say, I shop there because they do this and they do that and they have this and they have that. And again, a company who has developed their great value proposition, whatever their customers are saying about why they continue to shop there, that value proposition is going to echo that. Because really, it is there's two types of value propositions. One is employee, one is customer. What I'm talking about is the customer one, of course. But
right.
So you are going to, the process is, as you're going through your marketing strategy and building all of that, you are going to figure out what that message is that resonates with your chosen audience. Right? And it's not going to be a laundry list of things, right? The best value propositions align perfectly and are focused on the best customers who are engaging with you.
Right. I think it goes without saying that no one can be all things to all people. And this is where we see a lot of businesses making a mistake of trying to come up with a value proposition that encompasses the whole global or national market. And realistically, they're never going to appeal to all those people anyway. Yeah, good point. Thanks, Stephen.
And Stephen, how important is it to go through the process so formally? So the last time we talked of SWOT analysis, today we're talking about value proposition. I know a lot of solopreneurs or very small businesses that probably don't go through these steps so structurally, but there is value in doing that, is there not? It's how important is that?
So it does show payback. It's a process, and some of it is more qualitative. When you can articulate how you help, when it's clear, when it's consistent, it's a lot easier to enhance your brand, create better awareness. Most of the published figures that I've seen about organizations that have a properly built marketing strategy, they're talking about quantitative numbers like improvements to top-line revenue in the 12% range, improvements in bottom-line profit of 11%.
Wow, so not insignificant for sure.
Not insignificant numbers. And again, everything is you can have the best strategy in the world, but if you don't act on it properly, if your tactics aren't effective, that will show in your results. So you have to have a good strategy, but you also have to be able to deliver upon the strategy. And that's where it's very difficult to forecast the effectiveness of the efforts, but organizations that are committed to having, committed top down, to having that marketing vision, that marketing strategy, and then the supporting activities to ensure that that strategy and that messaging and that value proposition are being shared consistently, they do realize benefit. And again, the benefit, I would say, properly done, you're going to see, continuous improvement, continuous top line revenue that is higher than your competitors who maybe aren't as well positioned. And it's not just about top line, it's about profit. Because when you know who your customers are, when you can articulate the value that you're offering, it's a lot easier to close business. It's a lot easier to attract prospects. It's a lot easier to have that opportunity present itself.
So I'm curious about something. If you don't mind, Peter, I'll just jump in with
carry
a
on.
question. So when you look at the whole area of commerce and how you could have companies that are very similar to one another offering something, well, in a consumer's mind, basically the same product or service. So when you're looking at companies like that, and if I'm one of those companies that I'm offering services that are very similar to my competitors, how do you go about finding that value proposition that makes you stand out, that might give you a certain edge over the other companies that are offering the same things?
Well, and again, that comes back to understanding your market, understanding your customers. Part of the strategic marketing plan, building it, is to essentially know your customers, know your competitors, and be able to identify buyer persona. So it really is about alignment. And the better that you know your ideal customer, the better you can align your messaging. So if you look at value propositions, I mean, really, you can categorize them into three types, where most inexperienced marketers or people, when they're asked to set up their value proposition, or when they think about setting up their value proposition, they're going to create that laundry list, right? They're going to basically say, here are all the things I can do, and here are all the ways that I can help my customers, whoever they are. And in reality, that has no resonance against your competitors, right? Because now it's, they say they're number one. They say they're number one. They have these products. They have these products, right? And it's going to be, then it's going to come down to price. And price, although it's a contributor, should never be the reason why you choose to buy something, right?
Right.
It is one of the dimensions that help people to make a choice. Then, I mean, you take it from that laundry list, that litany of things that you can do well, and you start to identify, well, what are the favorable points of differences, right? And this is better, right? And now you're saying, okay, well, I offer free delivery. My competitor doesn't. I know everybody offers free delivery these days, but it's, I offer one-day delivery within a certain region, and I focus on that region. Or once we get past COVID, I offer free installation, or I offer some sort of thing that is unique because I've done my competitor research that my competitors aren't offering, right? And then you kind of move down into that resonating focus, and really that is where you're really talking to your customers. You know what it is that's going to cause them to buy from you, right? You've created your buyer persona. You know that your customer wants a premium product that is in stock and able to be delivered within 4 hours. I mean, someday we'll get there that everybody can do that, but maybe that's your unique value prop, that you, within X hours, minutes, days of receiving a custom order, you can provide that solution. Or maybe it's, I mean, you've got people providing services where, 7/24, 365. I mean, and at no premium price, right?
Sure.
So all of a sudden now it's like, okay, I know that this is something that's important. Maybe it's some level of subscription-based model where you've got a unique offering that instead of having to buy things outright, you get them as you need them, and there's an associated payment method that is unique to you. So it really comes down to the original question, Kathleen. How do you differentiate yourself? How do you know what's different? Well, you have to know your customers and you have to know your competitors well enough to be able to say, this is why I'm different. And this is the value it is to you.
Right. Did you have a question, Peter?
Right. My internet's a bit unstable, but if you can hear me, Stephen, I would say in this day and age of social consciousness, a company's outlook on something, a cause that's dear to many of your customers' hearts can also be part of your value statement, correct? For instance, people who are totally anti-guns, I'm using that as an example, it doesn't matter how good a service, price, quality Colt or Remington offer, they're not going to get to those people. That's perhaps a too obvious one, but there's certain others I know that because a company doesn't support a cause or does support a different cause, they alienate a big section of their potential customer base. So that's something that needs considering. Would you say that comes into value statement or not necessarily?
So I would say in identifying your audience, you absolutely need to be aware of it.
Sure.
And an interesting thing is one of, when you kind of go through a litany of things to be aware of, one of the things that you want to be conscious to do is to focus on the customer of your product, not necessarily the beneficiary of what that product does.
Sure. Sure.
Because ultimately, the reason we're all in business is to make money.
Absolutely.
And you have to, when I think about the social communities, right, where you have influencers and you have referrers and you have supporters, when you think about it, which personally would you rather have? 10 new customers or 100 new supporters?
Yep.
Right. Again, we are in business to make money. So yes, if we have identified through our customer analysis and our persona development that our ideal customer is a staunch supporter of something, some cause.
Right.
And we authentically are aligned to that cause, and we don't care if we're alienating a group of people, then absolutely, if the research supports it, you can make that part of your value proposition, because the only people you want to attract are the people who fall into that definition.
Sure. Yeah.
Flip side of that is, if that happens to be who you are and you like to attract those types of people, but you realize that the bulk of your new revenue is coming from a group of people who, well, you're not against, right? I mean, again, it's your company.
Yep.
You get to choose who you sell your product to.
Sure.
Right.
And in the creation of your buyer personas, as long as you are okay with selling it to a particular group of people because it doesn't contravene or contradict your beliefs, you can't make that statement,
No.
right? Because you will alienate those individuals.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
so a value proposition isn't cast in stone. I mean, at some point, companies have to regularly look at that statement and probably revise it. When would be a good time for a company to kind of sit back and reevaluate that value proposition?
Well, most often people do it when it's too late,
Yes.
where they've had a couple bad years and they go, oh my God, if we don't change, we're going to go out of business. Well, if you're already saying that, I think the opportunity may have passed you by.
Passed by, yeah.
But that also being said, when is the best, if you haven't done it in a while, when is the best time to do it? Now. Or at the most immediate opportunity, because it's one of those things that, to your point, Kathleen, yes, we do want to check it from time to time. And again, ideally, if you've done it once properly, it's a maintenance schedule. But the other thing that is a good indicator is something in your market or the global market has changed, right? There's some event horizon coming towards us, or we are in the midst of something that has changed the way we've been able to successfully do business. It's better if we can see it coming so that when it hits, we've already done the pivot. But it's, again, if we get hit by it, the sooner that we can react and try to evolve, the more likelihood we have of surviving the change.
That's
So
right.
is there any rules of thumb here, like maybe once a year to revisit this?
I mean, I am a huge fan. So again, different tiers. I mean, a marketing strategy, which this is part of. I mean, revisiting your marketing strategy, that can be 12 to 18 months. SWOT analysis, I mean, again, probably SWOT analysis and value prop, you want to look at it, not necessarily redefine it, but look at it every 6 months, every quarter, just to kind of do that health check. Has anything major changed? We're still good? No problem. Oh, man, things are changing. Okay, we need to set aside some time and do a kind of a quick recap of it. Or we're in the midst of, some sort of global change, and we don't know how long it's going to last, and we better be able to survive, whether it's 6 weeks, 6 months, or 6 years. Well, you better be looking at things a bit more in depth, going granular.
I mean, case in point right now, any retailer who was pushing the fact that he had convenient locations on every corner, he can push that as much as he likes, but when all the stores are closed for reasons beyond his control, if he can't offer online buying or home deliveries, not going to work too well, is it? So
correct. Yeah.
There's an obvious one. What about some pointers if you're actually going wrong, you're going down the wrong path with your value statement? What would you suggest there?
Well, I mean, sometimes, again, if you are trying to write something in a vacuum, which often solopreneurs do,
Yep.
I'll raise my hand. I've done that
Yes,
often,
we
where
all, yeah.
you get in your own head, and your perception becomes your reality, right? People who think they have a great product or service, they may actually have a great product or service, but what you end up doing, if you find yourself solving low value problems, low value in the eyes of your customer,
Yep.
you're likely going down the wrong path. I mean, that's
Right.
a good indication where you often have to ask yourself, I've got this widget and it solves this problem. And you go, okay, well, how much is it worth? But how much is it worth to the customer, right? You're not going to spend $100 to fix a $2 problem.
No.
Sometimes you are appealing to a too broad or too global a cause, right? So you end up positioning your solution, your value proposition, as being in support of something, right? In hope that, well, A, it's your cause, but also in hope that it brings people into the cause and they associate with you because of the great cause that you're doing. Well, if you're putting too much effort into that charity, and you're not focused on the self-interest of the individuals, that can be a problem too. Again,
Sure.
We are, as much as we want to be altruistic, we are in business to make money.
Right.
Absolutely.
We have to live and survive so that we can support our charities.
Right.
Yep. I think we're running
out of
towards
time.
the end of our time.
Okay.
Stephen, before we go, how can our listeners, if they want to contact you and your website, give us some details how they can get hold of you?
So essentially, my website is mycxo.ca. And I know, Peter, you'll be captioning this. So
yes, I'll get it right.
My email is s2, as in the number, at mycxo.ca. And I mean, look me up on LinkedIn. That's a great place to find me too.
Of course. We will put those notes in the intro and the credit slide on the video and in the detail on our podcast channel, our audio channel on Podbean. So thank you, Stephen. Kathleen, any more for Stephen before we go?
Thank you so much for joining us, Stephen. It's, as always, good to see you, and looking forward to having some more interviews with you in this series.
Well, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure.
And thanks to everybody for joining in. Bye-bye.
Bye.